Have you ever asked 3 different people for advice about something you already knew in your gut? Have you ever known exactly what you needed to do and still spent days or weeks going back and forth like you needed more clarity? Do you ever get a clear yes or no in your body, but then you question it or you suppress it? And how often do you say that you're confused when really, deep down, you know the answer, but you just don't trust yourself to follow through? In today's episode, we're going to talk about why you resist trusting, following through, and taking action on what you know. Because the thing is, you do know. You have all the answers to every single question you'll ever have inside of you right now. We all do. Now, whether or not you have access to and trust those answers is another thing. But the truth is, you already know. You know the conversation you need to have. You know the project that you need to start or the habit that you need to stop. You know if that new person is for you or not for you. You know what the next move needs to be in your healing, in your career, in your love life. And still, you're not doing it. You keep telling yourself you're confused, that you need more advice, or you need to read more reviews, or you just need to sit with it longer or journal about it more. You need more time, more information. You need to read another book or listen to another podcast episode or have another lunch with one more friend who might tell you the thing that you told yourself 3 weeks ago. One more thing so that you won't be confused. But you're not confused, friend. You just don't trust what you already know. And in today's episode, we're going to also unpack why the simple things, like just knowing what you know, feel so damn difficult to do, why they feel suspect, why the obvious answer seems too obvious to be right, and then you second guess it, and why you can feel a definitive fuck yes or hell no in your body, but then spend 3 weeks going back and forth with yourself and with your friends or with your partner until you're just like fed up, you're over it. And in today's episode, we're going to unpack what's underneath that pattern so you can stop thinking that there's something wrong with you and start learning how to actually trust yourself, because that's what's going on. When you know the thing, but you question if you know, or when you don't take action on your knowing, or you outsource your own knowing after you already know, that's a self-trust wound. That's not a I'm bad at making decisions wound. So throughout this episode, you're going to learn why you're not really confused nearly as often as you think you are. You're just conditioned to mistrust what's simple and direct and authentic for you. Welcome to The Simple Source, a paradigm-shifting space where self-love, healing, spirituality, and personal growth are redefined. If you've been told healing takes years, that abundance must be attracted, or that transformation requires struggle, you haven't been told the truth. I'm Linda Villines, a certified, trauma-informed holistic coach, author, and spiritual guide. After healing myself from chronic conditions, complex trauma, and lack, not by following traditional frameworks, but by creating my own, I'm now teaching you to love, heal, and free yourself, mind, body, and soul, so you can reclaim your highest health, happiness, and potential with joy and ease. Each week, we go beyond surface-level self-help and into the real mechanics of transformation. If the traditional paths to healing and spirituality haven't produced the changes you want in the life you desire, you're in the right place. You were never meant to struggle or wait for what is already yours. Let's get started with today's episode. So recently, I did a massive astrological and human design unpacking and synthesis. I took 6 major astrological charts, tropical natal, draconic natal, Vedic natal, fixed stars, asteroids, harmonics, and I broke them down I just unpacked the shit out of them to uncover my professional and financial blueprint, my design, meaning specific codes and instructions. Like not in a general, like, what's my purpose? Because I know what my fucking purpose is. I'm doing it. I didn't want to find out what my professional strengths are. I know all that. I wanted really nuanced, synthesized, integrated information codes, what I call them codes, from my highest self about my business model, about branding, revenue containers and streams, all that good stuff. And then I synthesized all the 6 astrological charts with my human design. And then what I'm doing now is I'm restructuring my entire business according to that integrated 78-page blueprint. And it's incredible. I am obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with what I did. I'm obsessed with what the blueprint is. Now, what's fascinating is that my integrated design, my blueprint, is basically telling me to do the shit that is most natural to me. Which are like, Linda, you went through all of that just to get to that, right? Which is like the simplest and simultaneously the most soul-aligned truth. And of course, it seems obvious, right? Just do the thing that's natural for you, that is simple for you. And it got me thinking that doing the most natural thing for us, which is by default the simplest thing because it's uncomplicated, isn't always straightforward. We all develop a fuck ton of conditioning early in life. And for most of us, that conditioning told us to not be our true selves, to not trust our true selves, to instead be this way, be that way, conform this way, mold yourself in that way. And then by the time you become an adult, your sense of what's true and simple for you becomes so distorted that you spend most of your time in some degree of confusion about who you are, what you should do, what to choose, how to act, how to move forward, who to date, who to break up with, how to exist. And decisions that are fundamentally simple become so complicated because you've spent so much of your life out of touch with and distrusting of your true self. So I actually think confusion is a mask for a lack of self-trust and self-knowing. Because if you're disconnected from your authentic self, from your values, from your truth, what makes your heart and soul sing and come alive, what moves you on a soul level, and also what conflicts with your values, your highest truths, then you're not confused. You're disconnected is what you are from your truth. And you're not disconnected from your truth because your truth is locked behind some self-worth test the universe is hoarding over you until you pass all these tests. That's not what's happening. You're disconnected because you were never taught to trust your truth, your authentic self, what's natural, simple for you. Now, you can't resolve self-trust and disconnection from your authentic self issues with advice from your friends or, journaling or overthinking, overanalyzing, reading more books, or just like letting things play out for themselves and seeing what happens. If you want more clarity, more capacity to make decisions without collapsing into panic or anxiety or freezing, if you want to be able to just do the simple thing that feels right without overcomplicating it, then you have to reclaim your authentic self in your body. Because the quote-unquote confusion and the making everything more complicated than it needs to be, they're not just mental patterns, friend. At the root, those are somatic, meaning in your body, problems. So let me explain that. Your authentic self, your soul self, right? The self that existed before any conditioning, your soul knows shit instantly. Your soul is not confused by your human life. There's no, let me see what Home Slice says about this before I make up my mind. That's not happening on a soul level. There's an immediate, clean, quiet, yes, no answer. It is that simple. And that knowing on a soul level, if you're connected, and that knowing that truth is often felt as a physical sensation or feeling first. That yes arrives in your body, that no arrives in your body. So, a yes could feel like an opening in your heart space, or a no could feel like heaviness in your gut. That's your soul speaking to you through the channel that's most efficient while you are in a human body, which is your nervous system. Now, when you're connected from your authentic self, because you've been conditioned to mistrust them, to mistrust the simplicity of your own knowing and truth from years and decades of unresolved trauma and learned survival patterns and all the things that you absorbed from the world about who you had to be in order to be safe or loved or acceptable. When you are disconnected from your authentic self, you develop a conflicted relationship with your own knowing. Because normalized trauma and normalized codependency, which are very universal, also normalize external validation and normalize seeking connection from others before connecting with yourself. So many of us were raised in family dynamics and environments where we were shamed for speaking our truths, for trusting ourselves, for being direct, for knowing who we were or what we wanted. Maybe trusting yourself resulted in you getting hurt or you getting criticized. Maybe you said what you wanted and then you got punished. Maybe you felt something in your body and then you communicated that and then you were told that you were being dramatic. Maybe the adults around you couldn't handle the truth that you were perceiving, and so you learned to doubt what you saw and felt. Maybe you were too young to be able to communicate effectively what you saw and what you felt and what you knew. And so you just fumbled, right, when you tried, and then you got dismissed. You were called stupid. So you learned to stay quiet, to suppress the truth of you. And what happened then was your nervous system started to experience safety through self-erasure, through self-silencing, self-abandonment, and safety from seeking authority outside of yourself. Because you learned a very specific survival pattern, a strategy to remain in connection then, to remain loved, to be seen, right? Which is to trust others more than I trust myself, to trust logic, not my intuition, to trust analysis, not my gut instinct, trust consensus, right? Someone else's words over what I feel in my own body. But just because you were conditioned to outsource your knowing, to doubt your own authenticity and soul, doesn't mean your knowing has abandoned you or your soul has abandoned you. That's the thing. The disconnection is an illusion. Your truth isn't gone. It has just been buried, but it's still there. It's still speaking to you, right? Your soul is always in communication with you. Your highest self is you. So you're still getting the answers. You're still receiving your truths. Whatever the next move is, the choice is, the thing, you are receiving it. But here's the thing. You have to stop negotiating with your truth and putting your knowing in the hands of someone or something else. That's why things in your life are way more complicated and more difficult than they need to be. Your knowing doesn't need credentials, doesn't need proof or external validation. That desire to get those things, that's just the echo of unresolved fear and shame and pain stuck in your body. And that's why when the obvious answer shows up, you get the knowing, the instinct, the intuition, then you feel confused and doubtful of the simplicity of it, right? Or the obviousness of it. That isn't because your channel to your highest self is broken. It's just been hijacked by decades old fear and shame. And so the confusion that you think you feel isn't really confusion in the way that you think that it is. It's that your body is simultaneously receiving the truth and then fighting it, resisting it. And then you pair that with a mind that's been conditioned to not even listen to your body. And then that's why the simple shit feels invalid, right? Untrue. So you're not confused about what you want or who you are. You've just been taught to not trust what you know and who you are. Now let's talk about why simplicity feels suspect to you, because this is a really big part of it too. When you know, and you always know, right? And that knowing is simple. It's not a series of A/B tests that lead you to the quote unquote right answer. Your knowing is always simple. And always yours, meaning your truth is yours, and it needs no other source to be validated as true. What makes it complicated is your conditioning around simplicity. Let me explain. So we talked about the self-trust thing, right? Many of us were also taught to measure value and what's legitimate by people who were operating not as their authentic self and from their own unresolved traumas and pains. And from those people, we were taught how things are proven as real or naive or not serious. So if you grew up in an environment where love was conditional, love was earned, where you learned that value comes from effort, if you grew up being praised for being the responsible one, the hardworking one, the one who figured everything out, then you learn that your worth is tied to how much you produce, how much you achieve, how much you impress. So the conclusion became, if everything of value and worth requires struggle, essentially, then struggle became the proof that something matters. So that's why when something is easy, it's suspicious. You were taught, not like overtly, intentionally necessarily, but for sure through repetition and reward, that if it was simple or easy, then it was probably wrong. So now as an adult, that's why you're not convinced by the simple thing, the easy thing, the obvious thing. That's why you suspect that something's missing. Because if the answer really was that obvious or that simple, if it really was that straightforward and easy, wouldn't like everybody be doing the thing? And if everybody could do it, then it can't be that impressive. And if it's not that impressive, then what does that say about me? What does that say about all the hard work that I've been putting into everything? So that's an unconscious fear that overachievers, people pleasers, perfectionists have. They all believe unconsciously, meaning below conscious awareness. Well, maybe sometimes it does become a conscious belief, but most of the time it's not conscious. But they believe if it doesn't cost me enough, then it doesn't count. But the truth is your subconscious, and thus your nervous system, was just conditioned to equate effort with worth, intelligence with authority, and simple and easy as not enough. Not because that's true, but because easy and simple are unfamiliar to you. So your sense of quote-unquote authority was hard-won through effort and overachieving and people-pleasing, self-abandoning, trying to be perfect. Now, the other thing I want to say is simple is not the same thing as easy. Sure, they're friends, they can hang, but they're not samesies, right? To be clear, simple doesn't mean you're never activated or you never feel scared. Simple just means undistorted, uncomplicated. It means your truth isn't hard-won through justifying and asking permission and over-explaining. It means your truth is just straightforward, even if the truth feels challenging. Now, that also doesn't mean that your soul truth, your authentic self's truth, can't feel exposing or push you towards your growth edge. Because a good amount of the time, it will. Whether or not your truth feels like a risk depends on the situation and how many shits you give. But what it will never do, your truth, your soul level truth, your authentic self's truth, it will never arrive with fear or with compulsion or spiraling or asking you to ask 5 different people or asking you to make yourself smaller. That's not your authentic truth. That's the safety mask of your conditioning getting activated and making sure it feels worthy because it doesn't trust itself and doesn't trust simplicity. And isn't that exhausting? Aren't you exhausted from all of that? Don't you want to be able to just feel the simple fuck yes or hell no and trust the simplicity of your own knowing and then act on your own knowing without it taking weeks of inner and outer torment of some kind? Because isn't that what everybody says that they want? A simpler and easier life. Well, if you want a simpler and easier life, you have to stop resisting it first. Your authentic self, your soul self, is not the one resisting it. That's the first thing to understand. It's your false self. So let's talk about that for a moment and get into the differences between your false self and your true self. So I did a whole deep dive episode actually about the differences between the false and authentic self in an earlier episode called How to Connect with Your Authentic Self for a Healthier and Happier Life, which you should really, really listen to if you haven't yet, because that's the whole shebang in that episode. But I'll just go ahead and break the basics down again really briefly for you. So your false self is the version of you that was built to survive, essentially. It's the identity that formed around everything you had to be in order to stay loved and safe and accepted and chosen. It's a version of you formed from unresolved pain and shame and trauma. It's the overachiever. It's the people pleaser, the perfectionist, the hyper-independent you, the caretaker, the performer, right? The smart one, the low maintenance one, the one who makes everyone laugh, the one who never needs anything. Whatever the roles that kept you in connection and feeling acceptable, they all formed an identity molded by survival, by conditional love, by fear, by suppressed emotions, right? Suppressed joy and suppressed authenticity. But that is not the real you. Those roles and those identities are adaptations. Now, that doesn't mean that your false self is bad or stupid, because there's no need to hate on your false self. Your false self, again, was built for and from survival. They kept you going when you were hurt and scared and alone. So your false self is not your enemy. We don't shame, we don't exile the false self. We love them. And that's how they relax, like loosen their grip. That's how their wounds resolve and release, through love, not through blame, shame, hatred, through acknowledgement, right? Through forgiveness, through love. And that's how you're going to learn to stop unconsciously reacting to your life and yourself from that false identity and start to show up with presence and responsiveness as your authentic self. Because change happens through conscious responsiveness, not unconscious reactivity, e.g. autopilot. Now, your authentic self is, again, your soul self. I like to say your authentic self is your soul fully expressed and undistorted in your human form. So I'm not going to explain what a soul is, because that's not what this episode is about. And if you're listening to the show, I'm just going to assume that you already know what a soul is. I mean, you are a soul. You know what you are. Whether or not you recall that information is another thing. But again, not what this episode is about. So your authentic self is not operating from unresolved trauma conditioning, because your soul is unattached to your trauma, to your human life. That doesn't mean your soul doesn't care. Your soul is unaffected by, because your soul existed before and will continue to exist beyond this incarnation. If you've heard me say, you are not your trauma, that's really what I mean. So your authentic self, being the expression of your soul and your human form, has zero to prove, needs zero external validation, needs to ask zero people their opinions on your truth, their truth, and gives zero shits about what anyone has to say about their truth. Because your soul, yes, again, has all the answers and doesn't question what it knows. Your soul doesn't doubt your wholeness, your brilliance, your goodness, your beauty, your lovability, your capability, your talent, your potential. Because your soul is not limited by your human form, by your traumas, your fears, your pain. And that means neither are you. That's your truth. Now, to be clear, when you're operating as your authentic self, that doesn't mean that you're acting above everything and everyone. It just means you're operating from soul truth. And you don't heal to become your authentic self either, because you don't earn your own soul and divinity through healing. You remember and reclaim them at any moment, at any time. You don't need to clear karma to reclaim your authentic self or your soul. You simply need to stop letting your false self convince you that you don't know what you already know and will always know. You need to stop resisting the simple truth of who and what you are. Now let's talk about this resistance for a moment, because it's real and we should unpack it. So you feel the simple true thing. You know what your truth is. You start to validate it, right? Acknowledge it. Maybe that means speaking it. You start to move toward it, and then your body clenches, tenses. Your chest tightens, your stomach drops. You feel an urge to delay, to check with someone about what to do, to research it or re-research it, or to not send the text or not have the conversation or not book the trip or not end the relationship. And then you interpret that tension, that resistance, as the real truth. You think your body is telling you that the simple thing that you know is the wrong thing. But that's not what's actually happening. What's happening is your body is interrupting your ability to receive your truth cleanly, because that old survival pattern formed from the fear that being your true self and saying your truth would get you hurt. And so that pattern just activates again because that pattern hasn't been resolved. It hasn't been released. So your nervous system has procedural memory, meaning it remembers, without you being conscious of it, what happened the last, 100 times or whatever you tried to trust yourself. It remembers all the times that you were shamed and criticized, punished, abandoned in your truth or when you trusted yourself. Every time you were told you were being dramatic or too much or just plain wrong, your body retained all of that. And now when you receive a soul level fuck yes or hell no in your body, that old patterning gets activated at the same time. Again, not because the simple truth that you know is wrong, but because your body is still bracing for what used to happen when you tried to trust yourself in the past. So that tension, that tightness, that urge to make it more complicated, that panic, that's not your truth and that's not your intuition. That's your conditioning. That's your past conditioning. And that's your false self showing up, going, hold on, everybody. We need to stay safe here. I know what kept me safe, and let's keep doing that. So the resistance and discomfort you feel is not a warning that your intuition is wrong. It's your nervous system negotiating with the past and with the present. And this is why understanding everything I laid out in this episode isn't going to resolve why you make shit more complicated than it needs to be, or why you choke when you know what you want to do. You can read every book, you can discuss all your, I can't make decisions and I stall when I want to do what I want in therapy patterns for years. But when that moment of truth arrives in your body and your body still contracts, essentially, constricts, instead of opening and receiving, all that insight, all that understanding just gets shoved under the table again. And then you're right back to overthinking, overanalyzing, overcomplicating. Because the pattern, that reflex, isn't in your mind. It's in your body. And the body doesn't learn to release trauma conditioning through knowledge, through cognitive understanding. It learns through repeated felt safety. It learns by receiving the simple knowing, feeling the resistance, and then choosing to do the simple thing, following through on your truth anyways, and then realizing, holy shit, I'm good. Nothing collapsed. I'm okay. I'm safe. And then you do that over and over again. That's how you recondition the patterning until basically your nervous system rewrites your self-trust and safety patterns. So the resistance means that you have a choice. Not that something is wrong, but you have a choice in the moment to be responsive as your authentic self or reactive as your false self. And when you make the choice as your authentic self over and over again, simple stops feeling suspect and it starts feeling like relief. Now, what does that actually look like then to trust the simple thing? Well, it looks like saying the honest no without explaining it in 3 different ways when no one asked you to explain it. It looks like sending that text without having a version 1, 2, and 3. It looks like letting the straightforward answer just be enough before you try to make it impressive. It looks like stopping the compulsive search for a more profound or deeper truth than the one that your body already gave you. It looks like choosing what's natural for you and letting, this is just natural for me, be the reason. So trusting the simple truth or the simple thing means you stop trying to qualify it or make it more worthy in someone else's perception of value and meaning. Just letting your yes be yes and your no be no. and then moving on with your day. Now, that doesn't mean that trusting the simple thing is passive or doing less necessarily. Well, I mean, by default, you will be doing less, but that's not the whole thing. The real thing is that trusting your simple truth is the aligned thing. It's you not distorting your own life and existence with past pain that isn't present anymore. And simple doesn't mean rushed or dumb or without courage or without impact. Because what you gain when you stop overcomplicating your own truth is so much fucking space where there used to be conflict between your knowing and your resistance to your knowing. And in that space, you can take aligned action without all that heaviness and inner conflict and overthinking and fatigue and self-doubt, ickiness. But your body needs to feel that space to actually feel good taking action on that simple truth, on your knowing. And you cannot mentally convince your body. And I am sure that you have tried maybe sometimes. Again, your nervous system relearns safety through experience, not through affirmations or understanding. Neuroception, which is your body's unconscious safety scanning, updates through what you repeatedly feel, not what you repeatedly think. So when you keep choosing to do the simple thing and you feel the resistance, but you choose presence, you choose self-love instead of abandoning your authentic self, your soul truth, you do that over and over, your body learns, hey, being in my truth feels good. And then it learns being in my truth feels easy. And that's exactly what I teach you in Liberation from Struggle, which is the course that I built for this exact issue. So you're not only going to learn how to trust the simplicity of your truth, but you're also going to learn to release that physical gripping, your body's grip on efforting and proving and bracing and struggling and overcomplicating. It's the somatic course that you have been missing that teaches your body that ease and simplicity and flow are safe. Basically, you get to remember what your authentic self already knows and what your soul self already knows. So click the link in the show notes and join me in Liberation from Struggle so you can rejoin your authentic soul self. Now, the truth is, being your authentic self is simple. That's why it's liberating. That's why it feels amazing. And that's why shit in your reality starts to change for the better effortlessly. Yes, effortlessly when you're living as your authentic soul self. Because all that earning and proving and efforting and complicating shit and asking for permission to exist is reflected in your reality because your reality is you. And that means that you are in command of your reality. And you can command your reality as your false self, who self-doubts and complicates what's true and straightforward and natural. Or you can command your reality as a version of you who knows that simplicity is a superpower. Because there is nothing your soul needs to know their own truth. So here's your action step for the week. I want you to think of one thing in your life right now where you keep telling yourself you don't know, or you're stalling, or you feel confused. Then I want you to ask yourself, if I stopped asking what everyone else thinks and I just listened to my body, what has my body been telling me is true all along? Then take 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. The first minute, you're going to self-regulate. So I want you to shake your whole body out, release any tension, any stress in your body. Shake, 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 shake for 1 minute. And that's going to be fun. Just let loose, have fun with it. And then, second minute, I want you to sit or stand if you feel like standing. Put one hand on your heart, another hand on your belly. Take a deep breath, not forced, like just a natural deep breath from your belly, not your chest, from your belly. And exhale. And then just keep naturally breathing, letting your exhales be longer than your inhales. And focus on your breath so you're not thinking. And then the next minute, I want you to ask your soul, or your highest self, what's true about whatever the thing is that you chose. And then exhale. Do not hold your breath and then tune into your body. And the answer will be clear, like immediately in your body. If you're regulated and you're not still holding tension, you're not, in your head, the answer will be clear in your body. So give that a try and see what happens. I bet you're going to be surprised by how clear and immediate the answer arrived in your body. And you're going to notice how different that answer feels from what your anxiety has been telling you, or what your fear or your self-doubt has been telling you. So I hope this episode has reminded you that your soul is not confused and doesn't need external validation for their truth to be verified or validated, and doesn't need external validation for their truth to be verified as valuable or true. And your truth isn't hiding from you. It's been with you this whole time, speaking in that quiet, direct, very uncomplicated language of your body and your intuition and your instincts and your own knowing. And the more you learn to trust that and release the attachments and fears of your false self through your healing, through self-love, the more that you're going to stop negotiating with those old fears and past pains and start living from what is real and true for you right now, in this moment. And that's when your life will begin to reorganize around your soul truths instead of distortion, essentially, because you'll be operating as your authentic self. And when you remember who you are, what's true becomes simple again. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope this episode awakened you, inspired you, and reminded you of what's possible when you love, heal, and free yourself and reclaim your highest truth and power. If this show has transformed or enlightened your self-love, growth, and healing journey, please like, save, and share this episode, and leave a positive review on Apple or Spotify. And subscribe to be reminded of new episodes. Your support is deeply appreciated and truly helps this show so much. And if today's episode resonated with you, don't stop here. Go deeper. My book, Unconditional, You Are Perfect As You Are, expands on these teachings and gives you the missing framework about self-love that no one is talking about. So get your copy today to start reading and loving yourself more. And if you're ready for the ultimate healing journey with daily instruction and guidance from me, I'd love to see you inside the Source membership, the only holistic and comprehensive step-by-step self-healing program that is proven to work. Remember, you were never meant to struggle or wait for what is already yours. It's time to claim everything you want and more. All the links are in the show notes. I'll see you next time.